all over the place.
I am.
You'll allow us to share screen also, yes?
You can, yeah, you'll be able to share a screen. You're both, in fact, while I'm thinking about it, I'll go ahead and make sure that you are co-hosts.
Great.
Okay, there you go, Colin. And
So I'll
Jim.
actually start off, Jim, and then hand it over to you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Does that work?
Sure.
All right. So hello, attendees. This is Linda Warren Seeley. I am the director of the section of dispute resolution for the ABA. We will start this program straight up at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Today we have Colin Rule and Jim Melamed. Did I say that right? And our program is a keynote called Mediate.com, ODR, and the future of dispute resolution. I do want to remind everybody that you are on mute. So if you have questions or comments, please put them either in the Q&A on the bottom of the Zoom toolbar, or you can post in the chat. I also want to remind you that we are recording this, and the link will be up on the CVent webpage probably within a week or two, just depends on how long it takes us to process things. Once Jim and Colin get started, I will be posting in the chat a link to the Expo's Hub, along with a link to Zoom support. So if you have any problems, you can contact them directly. And Colin and Jim, what I'm going to do is let both of you kind of introduce yourselves. We'll start in...
We'll give them a few more minutes. It's not even 10 yet. Yeah, out here. So great. Sounds good. And let's start before we officially kick off by saying, Linda, you're doing an amazing job. This DR Tech Expo is so cool. I really hope this becomes an annual event because I'm really enjoying it. I think you and your team have just done a great job laying everything out and creating a spectrum of content. So I can't compliment you enough. So thank you from the field. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And what I'll do at the end of this particular program is I'll post a link to the session evaluation. And I really want to encourage the attendees to fill those out because we've been so pleased with the response that we are probably going to do a 2021 Tech Expo. And the feedback that we get from the attendees and the sponsors and exhibitors will be absolutely crucial to our ability to figure out, what worked, what didn't work, what people liked, what they didn't like, what was easy to use, what was not so easy to use, and those kind of things. And I also want to put a real quick plug in here for the social things that we're doing in the evening. Last night we had Woodford Reserves, which is a whiskey and bourbon distillery out of Kentucky, and it was really interesting and fascinating. So please, if you do have time in the evenings, join us for some of our social events because I think you'll really enjoy them.
Well, it's actually interesting. I'm doing some work in New Zealand with a woman, Kate Haley, who is an expert, has a lot of expertise with Maori culture. And one of the things that she's taught me is the Maori, whenever they greet each other, when they hang out, they ask questions about how are you, how are your family? There's always time taken for that kind of broader context for the conversation before you dive into the substance. And I think the challenge with online interaction is we don't make the time for that kind of open social engagement, rapport building. So again, thank you for putting that in. We need to learn how to hang out socially online. We got the presentation stuff down pat, but the social stuff we're still working on. So
that's a little harder.
But fortunately the whiskey companies, they have some expertise to share in that regard.
Oh, and let me tell you, he was great. It made me want to run down to Total Wine and buy a bottle. So
that's
there we
great.
go.
That's great.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and disappear. And gentlemen, start your engines.
Thank you so much, Linda. Hi, everyone. looking at the list of all of the participants, we got a lot of friends on the call. So hello, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us. Jim and I are delighted to be here with you all. We got a lot of great stuff to talk to. I'm actually going to immediately hand the baton over to my friend Jim, but I get to take a minute to introduce him a little bit and say one of the things that I'm not sure everyone knows on the call is, Jim is the founder and CEO of Mediate.com. He created Mediate 25 years ago. This is the 25th anniversary of Mediate. And if you can remember back to what the internet was like back in 96, whenever it was, what the internet was like, to have the vision of where all this was going and the work that Mediate has done over the last 25 years, I'm incredibly honored that Jim has brought me back into Mediate. I was Mediate's first employee back in 1999, and now Jim has brought me back as CEO. Now Jim's my boss. He's the chairman of the board, and I feel like the opportunities for dispute resolution and technology are better today than they've ever been over the last 25 years, and they've been bright for the last 25 years. So what amazes me is a lot of people in the field don't really understand the full spectrum of value that Mediate.com has created, the rich resources that are available to there, and all of the assets that Mediate brings to the mediation field. So I want to hand it over to my friend Jim and let him walk us through some of those things. So Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Colin. And I'll do a screen share in just a moment. But I just want to say that it is just one of the most joyous experiences of my life to be able to bring Colin on board as our new CEO, and not only fantastic for Mediate, but I really think for the entire dispute resolution field. And I know that many people share that feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find the right window to share. And I think I did. And so I'm going to take 15, 20 minutes here and just kind of go through a little bit of historic stuff and existing services and opportunities that Mediate offers. And then Colin's going to kind of pick up what we're working on now and how we're thinking about the future. And so just a quickest overview on what I'll be talking about. To really understand Mediate and to understand, I think, really the field that was not intentional there, we really go back to 1988, which is when I met John Healy. And many of you will remember John founded ConflictNet in 1988 as one of the projects of the Institute for Global Communications. And at the time I was running the Academy of Family Mediators and being driven nuts by pink slips and always trying to get in touch with people by the phone. And John showed me way back when we were talking 800, 900 baud modems. He showed me email on a monochrome monitor creeping across the screen and bulletin boards. And we immediately signed up, ordered 13 modems, got the whole board online. And overnight, the phone stopped ringing and we became a much more interactive and competent organization. Scooching up from 1988, I'm sorry about that, to 1996, this was the first Mediate homepage. And we had a very limited real estate to work with. And in fact, I want to suggest to you that to a great extent, we've come full circle now, because whatever we do has to also work on mobile devices for people. In fact, that's typically how they're contacting us now. So again, mobility and efficiency. This was from 2010 when the ABA graciously, I'm sorry about this, I must have a timer on there. The ABA graciously gave Mediate an award. We see our leading technologists, Carol and Byron Knapp on the left. We see Colin, Claire Fowler, myself, John Healy, and John.
And I'll interrupt you just for a second, Jim, to say Claire has joined the session here too. And Claire did a great presentation on Monday walking through Mediate's caseload manager platform. So I urge you to go look in the agenda and see that demo, because she walked through a lot of that great functionality there in much more detail than we're going to go into it today. But Claire, I don't know if you want to say something.
Just wanted to say 10 seconds of hello. I know that you all are in good hands with Jim and Colin. but would love to have a chance to chat more in depth with any of you. You've got my email right there, cfowler@mediate.com. And if you have any questions about this program, if you would like a free demo, or I've been doing this for 10 years at this point and have just helped a lot of different centers, practitioners, organizations, etc., move from post-it notes to an online dispute resolution caseload management platform. So if you just want to brainstorm and think through what is the best process for you to do this, what would be helpful, what would not be helpful, then I would be happy to do that with any of you. So thank you so much. I will jump out now and hand it back
Well,
to
and the
Jim.
reason why Claire is jumping out is because she's in the middle of an online training for family mediators, and she's got 35 people over there in the other room. So thank you for joining us, however briefly, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, so Mediate Home, I'm guessing most of you have been there. The only little point I want to make is from the beginning, Mediate has been a champion of ongoing quality and deep content. And the content has driven the traffic, both professional and public. And it's because we've generated the traffic that we're able to do all of our other things, most notably assisting participants, disputants, to find qualified and attractive dispute resolution professionals. As we look at it now, there's really three main stakeholder groups that our online systems need to work for. Sorry about that. First one, of course, are end users, people that are just coming to us for their particular dispute. I'm really sorry about that. Also, mediators and professionals, you all, and then administrators who are running entire systems and programs. Here are the leading content centers. We're going to take a quick peek at them. You can see how much accumulated content we have. And at one point, we tried to figure out what's attractive to professionals, what's attractive to the public. And it turned out 85 to 90% of our content is attractive to both. And so we have not strictly segregated our content. There's a magic spot called mediate.com/sections, which is your best overview of all of our content. Most of it's free and readily available. There are a few premium sections as well. We have a great search system, and it's very satisfying. Encourage you guys to do that. Really fun to see, particularly how topics have evolved over the years. We have a specialized search system at news. So I love searching things like elder mediation or cannabis mediation, and you literally have a chronology of the development of the press talking about that topic. We've got featured bloggers. If you have a wonderful blog, you should go ahead and take a look at becoming a featured blogger. And I believe by doing that, we'll probably triple your traffic, is a typical experience. We've got a great video center. We've done well over 100 interviews with leading mediators and then sliced and diced those mediators into 1 to 3 minute clips, so you don't necessarily have to wade through the entire interviews. Additional locations, I'll be showing you the marketplace, our calendar, newsletter, and job listings. So in our marketplace, you can list not your professional services, but pretty much everything else, either for free or you can pay a bit for a elevated listing. We've got a calendar, again, free listings, as well as you can pay a little bit if you want a graphic and the like. Our newsletter just went out this morning. I need to move 847, I think was this morning. And I mean, this is just mind-boggling that we have published 847. This originally was monthly with John Healy and then John Ford coordinating it. And now it's weekly. And to be honest with you, I think we could do it daily at this point. We have so many submissions. One of the premium sites are job listings. And then the biggest thing for Mediate is brokering the relationship between disputants looking for services and professionals offering those services. Here's a quick list of the main functions that we offer to get mediators' cases, particularly the Mediate directory, presentation by geography. We've got 8 additional ADR directories. For a single membership, you can be in all 9 directories. We've got both brick and mortar as well as online mediator certification programs now. People can advertise to their local hometown by phone area code geography. They can do statewide marketing. And then, of course, writing articles and blogs is a great way of getting your name out. Here you see our main search system for professionals. Also note up top what we call our skinny search, which is in the top masthead. And so basically we have the ability to search for mediators and dispute resolution professionals at the top of every page of mediate.com. Here's a results page with a search on Los Angeles. I got some menu bars here. Here's an individual's professional listing and some of the badges. Here's the certification program. And we don't pretend that certification necessarily equals competence, but it certainly equals dedication and commitment. And one of the super cool things we've done lately is we've actually asked our certified mediators to participate in a monthly webinar. So we're able to keep current, particularly on all the issues of online dispute resolution, as well as build an ever more satisfying online community, which is no small thing, given that it's so hard to get together physically these days. One of the things that we've done that has served us grandly is all kinds of listings by geography. So city, 500 largest cities, state, international, et cetera. And I trust if you go out to Google and search any geographic term and a mediation term, we tend to do pretty well. We have a referral system where we'll give 3 or 5 professionals that meet the requester's criteria. These are the additional directories that we have in addition to mediate.com, arbitrate.com, and online mediators are perhaps the most notable in the moment. Here's some examples of our focused geographic marketing. Up top in the corner, you'll see a picture that rotates. Robert Rice, that's a featured placement. And then the featured mediators are all listed a bit below where you see the yellow box. In between, you see an example of a statewide banner that would appear for every visitor from that state. Mediate is the most visited mediation site by far. This is from Alexa. With regard to rankings, smaller numbers are better than bigger numbers. This is kind of a cute graph of our traffic, and take a look at about the 2nd or 3rd week of March, and you can see the impact that the pandemic has had with regard to traffic to mediate.com, and we're getting very close to cracking the top 100,000 websites in the world, which is actually something. This just gives you a quick example of Mediate's traffic compared to AAA, the American Arbitration Association, is in yellow, and then JAMS is in red. And so rather remarkably, you know, just a bunch of us working hard every day on our website and developing the online presence for the field. In terms of web traffic and relevance, we're right up there with AAA, which is rather satisfying. In the world of mediation, by far the most sites link to mediate.com. Again, go out to do Google searches. And the reason we do so darn well is not only the way we've coded the site, but it's just tremendous amounts of organic results. Since we've been involved from literally day one of the commercial internet, and we are such a constant publisher of relevant and valuable content, Google figures all that out. And we rely on Google. We think that typically when people need a mediator, that's where they go. And if they go to Google, they're going to find Mediate as well. Rather satisfying, we're also a top 10 attorney directory and the only ADR site in the top 100 and this is from Rankings.io. We have a kind of a nifty newsletter where 6 times a year, every 2 months, we package some really attractive content. We let you put your picture and the introduction up there, etc. And then we send these out to your recipient list to remind them basically of your existence. It's what the accountants and the dentists do. And so this is particularly attractive for civil and commercial mediators who especially want to remind their legal friends of their existence. Colin will be talking more about the new Mediate University, in part because of the pandemic and the fact that physical trainings really are not possible now, but also because so much of the relevant content these days is how you do online mediation. We have really gotten behind Mediate University, and it's just exploding here, and it really is the way I think that people are going to continue to educate themselves generally moving forward. Claire had that wonderful demo of Caseload Manager. I know Colin, you'll be speaking to that as well. And it's just amazing some of the clients we have: NASA, ICANN itself, the IMF, International Red Cross, 5 statewide systems, and maybe most satisfying is that we've been endorsed by NAFM, the National Association for Community Mediation, and we've taken over 100 community mediation programs from what I call worst to first in terms of how they manage their caseloads. And just as an example, in New York State, we have a system with 22 centers, a state hub, which gets all the metadata, and that they're processing over 40,000 cases a year at this point. I'm not going to go through all this, but my main point here is that some of us have been thinking about this issue of online mediation, and there's been incremental progress toward online mediation all along the way. In fact, it would be my suggestion that when the pandemic hit, it's kind of like we had already digitized the whole front end of a mediation: how they found us, how they vetted us, how they communicated with us, how they submitted materials, how we got them to sign an agreement to mediate, etc. And in fact, we've also already had effectively digitized the back end of the mediation, the development of the agreement, track changes, attachments, Dropbox, other secure places, DocuSign, signing it, getting paid online. And so the piece that suddenly was missing was that ability to get together physically to do the heavy lifting. And the initial impulse, and thank heaven for Zoom and its analogs, was, hey, compared to getting together face-to-face, maybe it's suboptimal, but compared to nothing, it's a miracle. And so let's go ahead and swap in the Zoom to take care of the heavy lifting. And thank heaven for Zoom and that it's there. But what we've discovered is it's not that simple, is that really to be most effective in bringing people to agreement online, we're going to take advantage of all the communication modalities. So asynchronous text is particularly valuable, along with the real-time rich media. And let's not forget about the phone, and let's not forget about text, and let's not forget about track changes. I mean, we are now, I think, going to use all of the modalities of communication to best get the job done. So sometimes I talk about a choreography of communication, other times an orchestration of communication, but I really think what it is a multi-act drama, with the parties being the primary players, and we're the director of this drama that's going to play out. And so I just want to encourage all of us, take a look at some of the courses we're offering about integrating the different communication modalities and how that can best be done. But it is a new world. Colin and I, John Healy, had been thinking about this stuff for 25, 30 years. The one thing we didn't expect is that there would be a sea change the third week of March. And suddenly the only mediation taking place, not only in America, but just about globally, is online mediation. And a really interesting question is, how long will this last? And when things clear up, what will we then have? And my prediction, and I think it's a relatively conservative one, is that even when the pandemic eventually clears, I'll bet at least half of all mediation downstream is done online. And so it really behooves all of us to sharpen our thinking about this as we move forward. So in sum, every case is now an online case. Meeting is optional. And the final slide is just to alert people to our 25th annual conference. Originally, it was going to be in Sun River, Oregon. Now it's online starting September 30. You can see the URL, mediate.com/mediation 2020. Phenomenal conference. Encourage all of you to attend. Thank you so very much.
Well, I think you can all see what intimidating shoes I have to fill in taking on the CEO job. It's incredible what Jim has built and the team over the last 25 years. And you know, it's amazing to think, you know, Mediate received the Problem Solver Award in 2010. That's even 10 years ago, and how much has happened since then. So it's really, I feel such a responsibility, almost a custodian of these resources that have been generated over these years, the videos and the articles and the tools. So many, I really feel like mediate.com is the home of mediation on the internet. And as mediation has expanded, and now we have the Singapore Convention and all of these developments, I think the relevance of mediation is going nowhere but up. So Jim told me back when he hired me straight out of grad school in '99, he said, you know, Colin, if you squint a little bit and you look into the future, it's kind of hard to tell ODR and ADR apart. And one of the things that I used to put in my PowerPoints, and I think people would sort of groan because they didn't believe it, was ODR is ADR. ODR is not separate from ADR. It is the future of ADR. And I think your point, Jim, is very well taken. The pandemic has made that happen overnight. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to the world the way it was in January 2020. I think this bell has been rung and it will not be unrung. So.
In fact, there's been a mass training event, you know, not only of professionals, but of end user consumers. Who could have ever, you know, you wouldn't wish for it, but who'd have guessed that this would happen so dramatically?
Well, think about the dispute resolution section in and of itself. You know, one of the best run conferences. I mean, it's a must attend every year. I've attended for 25 years. I love the conference. And then this year we couldn't have it. And what happened? The section had to scramble and create an online conference, and it worked great. And now we have a DR Tech Expo, which is also working great. We have people I see on the attendee list from literally all over the world. We never would have had this possibility before. Would we have done this? Would we have made these changes if not for the essentially, you know, pandemic forcing us to do it? And I'm not sure we would have. But now that we know that this is a possibility, and from the comfort of our bedrooms, we can click in and have these interactions, interact socially, learn about the cutting edge, get access to these tools. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way the world was before. So let me actually share my screen too. I'm going to share my whole screen because I actually want to show a variety of different things. But first thing I want to do is talk about kind of where we go from here. You know, Jim talked about a lot of the things that mediate.com has, and these incredible tools that are constantly evolving and we're adding value. One of the things that I'm really proud of, obviously Jim and mediate.com, they owned arbitrate.com for quite some time, but now we're putting a lot more time and energy into developing arbitrate.com and getting more articles there and getting more content there. And everything that you just saw that mediate.com has done for the mediation field, I think we share the aspiration now of doing that in the arbitration field. Because from the standpoint of the dispute resolution section and the online dispute resolution field more broadly, I think arbitration and mediation are really the two key tentpoles for the practice that we have. And of course, there's arbitrators that don't do mediation and there's mediators that don't do arbitration, but there also is an overlap. We just recorded a training with my good friend Colin Brannigan in Ontario about Med-Arb, and the understanding and sophistication around Med-Arb has evolved as well. Technology, not only has technology enabled mediation and arbitration, it's transforming mediation and arbitration. And we're starting to see how practice is evolving with access to these new tools. So we're putting trainings together where we're getting content from all over the world, from international arbitrators, domestic arbitrators. You can see we have, just like on mediate.com, we have featured professionals, we have listings. But the point that I would make to you is, as Arbitrate's traffic is tracking up, it's nowhere near where Mediate is, because Mediate's been around for 25 years, but our traffic's increasing pretty rapidly. This is kind of an interesting land rush, a gold rush, because we don't have as many practitioners that are owning certain area codes, that are owning certain expertise areas on arbitrate.com. So if you are an arbitrator, I think now this is a very wise time to sort of stake your claim on Arbitrate, because as the volume increases, I think these featured professionals and the listings on Arbitrate are going to become incredibly valuable. So we're very excited about this and reaching out to this community and building our connections with the arbitration field. Many of you know my good friend, Amy Schmitz. We wrote a book together for the ABA. Amy is doing an interview for us called The Arbitration Conversation. We now have 41 of them posted. She's already got a few others queued up. And it's amazing. We now have practitioners from all over the world contacting us saying, hey, I want to be on the arbitration conversation. This is great. So if you do want to talk with Amy about the latest and greatest in arbitration, please don't hesitate to reach out to her. I don't know if Amy's on the call, but she's done an amazing job. And the scope of the conversations that she's having are incredible. One of the things that I learned from the work with Mediate is when we were doing all these interviews, it was really valuable. It was sort of like, you know, this is the latest and greatest of what's going on in mediation, talking to the experts about what they're doing, absolute cutting edge. And I think they say the news is the first draft of history. Well, I think we were doing the news. You know, that's what the newsletter is about, what's happening today. But now that we've been around for 25 years, we actually have interviews with Roger Fisher. We have interviews with Frank Sander. We have interviews with Sid Lezak, with Margaret Shaw. Unfortunately, they're not with us anymore, but we have their articles. We have this content, and it's such a rich well of experience that I think new practitioners, when they come into the field, for them to have access to these conversations is incredibly eye-opening. And I think that's a lot of what Amy's doing as well, by capturing all of these conversations. You know, Amy and I have talked about the editorial voice for arbitrate.com, and we want it to be future-oriented. We want it to be technological. We wanted to deliver on the original promise of arbitration, which was about access, fairness, efficiency, effectiveness. And I think, you know, there's a lot of talk about arbitration being slagged as sort of the new litigation. And sure, there's a lot of that's true. But for us to surface kind of these young practitioners and talk about where this is going and how technology is transforming the field, it mirrors everything that Mediate has done in advancing the practice of mediation. We want to do the same thing with arbitration. And we think that there's a great synergy between these two sites. So I do urge you to check it out, and please don't hesitate to contribute. Another thing that we're very excited about is our website, mediationexpress.com. And this is Mediate's foray into delivering online services. And anyone can visit mediationexpress.com, and they can resolve disputes with just a $99 payment. They get an intake process. We have a panel of mediators that are already set up and ready to handle the cases. As Jim said, we do monthly calls with all of our panelists, and we've done skill refreshers and trained them on all the tools. I really do feel, again, if ODR is the future of ADR, we have to figure out to meet our parties where they are and help them be at their best. And a lot of that means using technology in a streamlined and efficient way. And Mediation Express is the first step that I think Mediate and Arbitrate, because we're also looking at online arbitration as well. How do we move the provision of these services online in a way that meets the needs of the parties, helps them be at their best, and provides right services at the right time? So very excited about Mediation Express and everything that this represents. But what I really wanted to spend a good chunk of the time talking about today, before I open it up and sort of hear your thoughts and questions, you know, one of my co-founders my only co-founder at Modria was one of my longest friends, Chitu Nagarajan. And we had worked together at eBay and PayPal. Chitu was the founder of ODR India and ODR China and ODR World. And we established a relationship in the early 2000s. She came into PayPal. We worked together on building dispute resolution for eBay and PayPal, and then we ended up creating Modria, which many of you know about, which eventually was sold to Tyler Technologies and now is powering court online dispute resolution around the world. Chitu has created a new online dispute resolution platform called CREC ODR. And when she first told me the name, I wasn't a big fan, but then she explained that CREK stands for Colin Rule, Ethan Catch. So then I had to like the name. But we are establishing a deep partnership with CREC in a variety of different areas. And as you saw on the demo on Monday, Mediate has the most flexible, powerful mediation case management system anywhere in Caseload Manager. And Chitu and her team in Chennai have been building what I think is the most advanced online dispute resolution platform anywhere in the world with CREC ODR. And we are now combining those two things to combine Mediate's case management functionality and our training capacity with CREC's ODR platform. So what I want to do is I want to show you a demo of some of the synergies that we're moving towards in building this new system. You know, I think the aspiration for Mediate.com, we're going to talk about this in a minute, is to be the technology, the IT department for the mediation field worldwide. And I do think that online dispute resolution represents a massive leap forward. So let me actually stop my share here. I'm going to jump over to my browser. So let me just walk you through a little bit about the Mediate.com CREC platform. So I've actually created a case for us to look at here. So I'm going to log in as the mediator. And once I log in, you'll see I have essentially my panel of cases. These are the cases that I, as a mediator, have been assigned on this server. Now, this, the CREC platform runs on AWS. It's located, we can locate the servers anywhere all over the world. So we have the ability to build new instances that can be custom branded for each individual organization. So it's more of a powered by relationship. But essentially, this becomes an online resolution center. And we can create as many rooms as necessary and invite our parties in. So this is a demo dispute that I've set up here. And when I click in, you can essentially see how the room operates. Now, I can show you what it looks like from the case management perspective, but I'll just walk you through kind of the main functionality in the room. The first thing I'll say is this is a completely responsive platform. So it works on mobile devices. You can swap out the different panels of functionality. So no matter what device you're accessing, a tablet or a phone, all of the functionality is available in both places. But what you can see here is you always get a call out that shows your next steps. You can see the status of the case that you're involved in. This is all completely configurable. You can design as many workflows and stages into whatever design you want. There's also extensive help content, PDFs, and facts available for answering any questions that you or your parties may have. You can see the detail about the case, and you can actually create a full workflow and Solution Explorer workbook that the parties go through in advance of beginning the direct communication. And that, yes, please, Jim, do you have a comment?
I'm very sorry to interrupt. I think that you're actually wanting to be showing us the platform. We're not seeing it.
Thank you so much for telling me that.
Yeah, we did see it during the run through.
Very interesting. So let me
stop using the second
share.
laptop for that, perhaps?
No. Let me see here. I want to see. Okay, so let's see here. I thought everybody was seeing all of the amazing things that I'm showing off here, and I'm very dismayed that people have not.
There we go.
Okay, so let me just walk back again. I apologize. You think with all my zooming, I would get that straight. I was trying to share my whole screen, but I guess I just shared one window. So as I said, I've logged in as a mediator to this CREC instance, the Mediate CREC instance. I'm clicking into the case here. And again, what you can see, I'll show you again, it's a completely responsive platform. So all of the functionality can swap out as tabs if you access it on a mobile device or a tablet. But when you're in the full view here, you have your main view of the screen here. You can see all of the actions that are available to you. I'm a mediator, so I've got a lot of actions. You can see your next steps. All of this is completely configurable in terms of the stages of the case. You can see the case detail, all of the background information about the case and whatever questions have been answered by the parties in advance of the mediator joining. We have a very extensive document management functionality where you can add large quantities of information. You can code it. You can say which participants have access to the information. And then these resources are available online 24/7, so you don't have to worry about creating the paper and mailing things all around. We got a timeline that tracks all. I just created this case, so there's not a lot in the timeline, but it tracks all the major events in the case. I'll jump over discussion. I'll come back to discussions in a minute. You have a private notebook which is for you to take notes on the case, only for your review. However, if there are multiple mediators in a case, you can all put notes in here, and you can add whatever notes are appropriate as you go along. You can see all the information about the parties, the case manager, the complainant, the mediator, the respondent. And the complainant and respondent can be multi-parties, and they can also invite in lawyers if they have representatives, and the lawyers have access rights in the process as well. We also have a calendar functionality where you can schedule whatever sessions, whether or not they're online video conferences or in-person meetings. And so this is one that I'll show you. When you schedule a session, you can specify the meeting type, you can title it, you can put an agenda, and you can also specify if it's a video call, for instance, you can say, okay, I'd like to auto create a Zoom meeting, or I'd like to provide an URL to my own platform, or we have now integrated video functionality into the platform. So this kickoff meeting here, if I click join, it automatically, let's see, it opens up a new window. Let me log in as, okay, mailinator.com and my password. So now I'm logging in as the respondent. Okay, don't save. And let's see, if I join this meeting here. Well, let's see. I'm going to, this meeting here, when I click this, I'm actually logged in on another computer into the video conference. So I'll show you that functionality in a minute. We have multiple people logging in so that I can show you the video, but it's completely integrated into the platform and the video appears in the browser here. So I can show you that in a second. We also have the ability for mediators to enter their own opening statement, and they can reuse that across different cases. And then we also have the ability to send email reminders to individual parties or all the parties if there's action they need to take within the case. But the real power of this platform is in its communication functionality. And what you can see here in the discussion environment is we actually have 3 separate conversations that are opened up. And I'm logged in as the mediator, so I have access to all 3. And this is the joint session here, so I can post a message at any time that says, hello parties. And when I post that, it automatically updates the thread, and then the parties are notified there's a new message for them in the joint session. Now, I also have a private conversation, and the platform notifies me when I move from one platform to another, so I always know exactly which conversation I'm in. But this is a private conversation only with the complainant, Sally Soprano. So when I post a message here, only Sally can see it. And you can see there's a new message here, and it identifies when I have new content. When I click on this private conversation, now I'm in a private conversation with Barry, the respondent. So I have these 3 conversations that I can maintain at the same time. So that means I can caucus with my parties at the same time I'm engaged in the joint conversation. Now, the other powerful ability that I have is I, as the mediator, have the ability to pause this conversation. And when I click this, the parties are notified, okay, this discussion is temporarily paused, meaning they can only go into the caucus spaces. And at any time, I can come here and click here to resume, and then the conversation is reopened. So you might imagine I could say as the mediator, let's move this into the caucus spaces. All right, I hit submit. That message is posted into the joint session. And then I can click here to pause, and I can move the conversation into caucus. And that functionality obviously is not available in other straight conversation environments, discussion environments. So this is one of the very powerful functionalities that come from a dedicated ODR platform. So another functionality that I really like, if I come back to the home, is I have the ability to jointly author settlement agreements. So just like a Google Doc, I can open up this window, and I can come in here and essentially draft. This is the content of the settlement agreement. Now, my contributions are highlighted in one color here, but the other parties can log in, and at the same time, in the same window, we can edit this document together. And we can be online, communicate. Well, how about Sally agrees to this, or Barry agrees to this, and their contributions are highlighted in other colors as well. And when I go back to case home, I still have access to my discussion, all my documents, my timeline. But again, if I go back to the settlement agreement, all of the changes that have been made are saved in real time. And we can automatically send this to the parties for review. And then it can generate a PDF version of this settlement agreement as well, if both parties agree and e-sign. So this platform, again, combines this. Essentially, I'm only looking at my mediator view. Let me log out quickly. I need to hide my Zoom window here. And I'll sign in as an administrator, as a case administrator. Okay. So now I'm logging into this instance as a case administrator, and I can actually manage my whole platform, all of my mediators and everything available in real time on the platform. Let me actually go to my other window here. Okay, so mediate, correct, ODR.com. Oh, am I looking at the right window? Let me start my screen share again. Okay, share, and log in as a case administrator. Well, I think I have my login wrong, so I can't show you that. But in essence, it lets me have a panel of all of my mediators. I get real-time visibility into all of my cases. And then essentially that allows me to assign my mediators, monitor the performance of my mediators, and then the data that we cull out of this platform is then put into Caseload Manager. And the last thing that I want to do before I open it up for questions, let me stop my share one more time and then share this screen. You know, there's a lot of talk in the dispute resolution field about the fourth party. And the fourth party, in essence, you know, if you imagine party 1 and party 2 are the disputants, and party 3 is the human neutral, the mediator or arbitrator, the fourth party is technology. And technology has a seat at the table. You can envision it as almost as a happy little robot sitting there at the table with you, but it could just as easily live in the cloud. It could be Siri, or it could be Alexa, or it could be Cortana, or whatever we call it. But in essence, the fourth party can do a lot of things to make dispute resolution more effective and more efficient. Really, the fourth party is your partner in the resolution process. The third party and the fourth party need to work together. But the fourth party can lighten administrative loads and save money. It can handle all of the things that can distract you from really focusing on the needs of your party. It can build your credibility. And the thing about the fourth party is it's becoming more capable all the time as computer processors become more powerful. And it's always in your party's pocket, so we can get access to these disputes much earlier in their life cycle. And the fourth party is able to do things that human neutrals can't or shouldn't do. So the point is, the fourth party is really the future of online dispute resolution. Right now, we ask the fourth party to do a wide variety of different things. And this is really what Mediate is focused on. And in our partnership with CREC, we're focused on intake, problem diagnosis, processing payments, administering cases, sending out notifications, managing documents, calendars, scheduling, and even structuring negotiations through algorithmic tools to ensure that the negotiations remain effective and efficient. So all of this is not controversial because it's being done today. And we are devoted at Mediate and Arbitrate to building the best in-class tools that live up to our ethical obligations in the field to achieve all of these tasks. But what's really exciting is thinking about what the fourth party is going to do tomorrow. Are we going to be able to leverage artificial intelligence? Are we going to be able to leverage crowdsourcing? Are we going to be able to leverage artificial intelligence to help our parties understand what the value of their case may be and map out their ZOPA, their zone of potential agreement? Are we going to be able to coach parties and give them advice about the options available to them and what choices they have to make, reframe their understanding and evaluate their BATNAs, and then potentially even automatically enforce our outcomes through things like smart contracts and blockchain? We already are seeing incredible advances in terms of drafting documents and submitting those documents, and even having agents negotiate on behalf of parties so that you can tell a software agent, these are all the details about my case, and that agent can go off and try and find you an effective resolution and then bring it back and say, hey, what do you think about this? So this stuff that I'm talking about, what the fourth party is doing today, this is all pretty normal. We rely on the fourth party to do this. It's not controversial. 20 years ago, this would have blown our minds to be thinking about using technology for doing all these things. And now it's commonplace. My argument is these things are going to be commonplace in the next 10 or 20 years. And we at Mediate and Arbitrate are committed to building the best in class tools for doing all of these things, for achieving all of these objectives. So I could not be more excited about where all of this is headed and the future of online dispute resolution, and being able to take the reins at Mediate and drive us into this next era. It's a very, very exciting time. So building on the foundation of what Jim showed and all of those great services and looking into 2021 and beyond in our post-pandemic world, I think that's where all of this is headed. So with that, we got 15 minutes more. Why don't we see kind of what questions have been raised? I wasn't looking at the chat, Jim. Have you had an eye on it? Have people asked any good questions?
You know, I probably haven't been as good as I should have.
All right, well, let's take a look and see what's in there.
Maybe I can make a couple comments there, Colin, while you're taking a look at that.
Please do, please do.
A couple basic things. One of the great things about this level of a platform is it takes care of all the security and privacy issues that we're concerned about, and that while email and attachments are handy and available, the reality is for purposes of capable mediation and dispute resolution management, we want elevated security and privacy. The critical thing, of course, is the right people see the right information and nothing but. And that's one thing we get. You also see the integration of asynchronous text with real-time video, either right within CREC, or you can also do your separate Zoom or other license. But in terms of effectiveness as an online mediator, I'm very convinced it's the complementary relationship between the asynchronous text and the real-time video, using each of them for what they're good at to best get the job done. I love the textual management where you can have both a joint textual conversation as well as respective caucus conversations going on even simultaneously, and that you can also pause or freeze any of those discussions as mediator. Finally, as we move into caseload manager and managing a whole program or system, the key thing is we start getting data and we start getting metadata. And this is stuff we've really never had before that allows us to improve either our individual services or programs. Quick illustration, a program can readily identify who their best performing mediators are and who are the ones that are a bit weaker, and create partnerships or mentorship relationships between best and challenged. Same thing with regard to entire programs. We can find a real high performing office or program. We can find a lower one. We've created relationships between community centers where we're able to elevate overall performance based upon identify what has worked well for others. So hats off to you and to Chitu and for us grabbing this bull by the horns and running with it. I just think this is going to be a game changer.
Absolutely.
For the mediation field.
Yeah, and I think Meyer asked a great question. He said, what's the cost of these services for individual mediators and for organizations? And I think to a certain extent, our goal is to partner with mediators to deliver services across the internet. We're finding demand. I'm having people contact me from 5 continents saying, we want to build ODR systems. How do we do this? How do we utilize your tools? I think the goal is, yes, we want to provide these tools for individual mediators to use in their practices at as low a price point as possible, because we want everyone to be using these tools. And we're really missionaries when it comes to spreading dispute resolution. So we want to get that out there. We want to put these tools in everyone's hands. But what's really exciting is building the new justice system, building a distributed justice system that's based on software that can cross jurisdictions so that we can deliver the right services at the right time to help people resolve their cases in real time. Now, I know there's another question here from Deborah that says, is Mediate and CREC a competitor of Matterhorn? Well, Matterhorn, I think, is very focused on the courts. And again, my company, Modria, was sold to Tyler Technologies, and now Modria is a division of Tyler, and that's providing court-connected ODR. We're very focused at Mediate and Arbitrate on providing services to dispute resolution organizations, arbitration councils, and that could be large organizations like AAA or JAMS or Adjudicate West, or it could be small organizations, even individual mediators who are handling their own individual caseloads. We want to provide a combined package of tools that give them everything they need. We want to be the ERP platform, in essence, the SAP of ODR. So all of the tools that you would need to do intake and case management and billing and invoicing and reporting, so that your systems are learning systems, so the technology is constantly improving. So right now, now, Mediate and Arbitrate, we don't sell to any courts. We're not used by any court platforms. But as Matterhorn expands the scope of their services, and there's a lot of other providers too. If you go to, let me share my screen one more time, because I have a couple other things that I want to show. Here. Yeah, if you go to odr.info, that's the website, well, actually not Cyber Week. If you go to odr.info, that is the website of the National Center for Technology and Dispute Resolution. And you can see there's a list of ODR providers on this page. There's more than 100 around the world. Our aspiration is to be the top ODR provider in the world, but there's a lot of other ODR providers, including Matterhorn and including ODR providers that focus on individual verticals, whether or not that's courts or whether or not that's insurance or whether or not that's something else. So our aspiration is to build a configurable platform that can work in all of those contexts. So yes, I think it is important for us to, and this is one of the reasons why we're investing so heavily in Mediate University. We are working hard to provide training and awareness about all of these tools so that neutrals can feel comfortable utilizing these tools with their parties and knowing that they are using tools that abide by best practices for online dispute resolution and dispute resolution more generally. This organization, hopefully you're seeing this, Jim. If you're not looking at the iCoder website, please let me know because I messed that up before. iCoder is the International Council for Online Dispute Resolution. And iCoder is a spin out from the National Center for Technology and Dispute Resolution. And iCoder is issuing standards around best practices for online dispute resolution, video mediation, video arbitration, ODR training. And I actually can show you, this is a bit of a preview here. This has not been released publicly yet, but I will share it here. This is our new set of standards that we are just about to release for payment providers, payment platforms. And these are custom created to address the needs of credit card companies or online payment mechanisms like Stripe or PayPal. And we also, not only do we have these standards that are very explicitly applied in the payment context, we also have a set of best practices which are not mandatory to abide by the iCoder best practices, but they give you very specific feedback where all cases are resolved within 60 days. All outcomes are enforced within 5 working days. We have been requested at iCoder to provide this feedback to some very large organizations, one of which is the Royal Bank of India, which is now issued a rule that all payment providers in India must provide online dispute resolution to their customers. So as I said, we are seeing demand for online dispute resolution on all fronts from 5 continents, and iCoder is leading the way in promoting best practices. At Mediate and CREC, we are committed to abiding by all of these standards and becoming absolutely hopefully the gold standard for how these standards can be deployed and applied to different types of disputes around the world. And as iCoder issues new standards and evolves, Mediate and CREC are going to evolve also in tandem. Please, Jim.
Colin, got 2 questions for you. First is, does CREC ODR have a video platform in addition to the email and chat functions? You want to go ahead and respond there?
Absolutely. And yes, I messed up my clicks before, but let me just show you the, so this is the CREC platform, again, the same room that I showed you. And when you click on join meeting, in essence, the video opens up right in the session. You can put in your name, and then essentially you see, this is another computer that I have here for Sally Soprano participating, and the video exists right within the browser. Now, this video platform is integrated into the same software code base that is hosted on AWS. So what that means is the data is sequestered on one server. So if we create a CREC instance, CREC Caseload Manager instance, it can live on one server and the data never leaves that server. Now, again, as I mentioned before, when you create here your video session, you can select what type of video you want. So we have CREC's integrated video functionality. You can provide your own URL. So that could be Microsoft Teams, that could be Legaler, that could be WebEx. And then we also have integration with Zoom, where you can put in your Zoom account and then it can auto-generate a unique Zoom meeting for this particular event. So what we're trying to do with CREC and Mediate is not marry ourselves to any one individual video technology. We think that video is going to become a service available across the internet. So we want to integrate with all the video services. So you can either use the CREC video process, or if you want to use Zoom, because Zoom has some advanced functionality, or another platform that may be more secure, you can do that as well. So all of that is integrated in. The other thing I'll mention, we're also integrating optical character recognition into the Mediate CREC platform, so that when someone actually takes a photo of a document, we can scan in all the text, understand the document, and even gather the contact information for the respondent from that document. So again, it's not about what the functionality is today, it's about where the fourth party is going. And no platform, no ODR platform has married sophisticated case management functionality like Caseload Manager with all of this cutting edge ODR functionality. And that's what the promise of this partnership really means. I also want, don't get too married to the branding, because I think we're working on new design, we're working on new branding that's going to be much easier to communicate to end user parties. So there's a lot that's coming. So stay tuned. 2021 is going to be a big year. So yes, Jim.
Hi, Colin. A couple great questions here. And I may put them both on the radar screen and we can answer them maybe at once. One is that there's a built-in bias toward educated participants for this demo. Have you considered this aspect of your development? The other one is what's the positive or negative of using CREC video or Zoom? Mm-hmm. Is it accessible to different types of users with disabilities? And let me just add one little piece here. Probably the bar we're trying to reach may depend on the context. For example, mm-hmm. if we're providing technology to a court or to a governmental agency, that may be different than what we would be providing in the private sector. Second quick comment from me is, no matter how fancy your technology is, there's always going to be a risk that it won't work for one or more parties. And so I always believe you need a backup system. What happens if we don't have the bandwidth for the Zoom? What happens if for any reason somebody cannot log in or what have you? And intriguingly, I find the good old device, formerly known as a phone, is often very handy. Phone and text communications are valuable to remember, particularly when things go sideways with your technology. But what about educated participants and any other comments about disability access?
Absolutely. One of the key tenets of the iCoder standards is accessibility. And one of the things that the standard calls out very explicitly is providing access to users with different ability levels. One of the things you can see we call out in the payment standards is we specifically refer to the WCAG 2.0 level AA digital accessibility standards. So the work that we do with CREC, we are going to live up to all of these standards, and that's something we take very, very seriously. I know Dave Larson is on the call, who's done excellent work on this. The last iCoder call that we had with Dave talked about a lot of these issues. So I think that this needs to be something that if you are evaluating the use of a software platform, this needs to be something you specifically look into, because this is something, if that platform does not make this a concern or make this a priority in its design and development, then this may become an issue and it may limit access to some of your parties. I will say also, you know, when Modria was working with Tyler, we were working with lots of courts and pro se litigants, and we found, yes, there were many parties that had different levels of comfort with written communication. You know, if your platform is too complicated and it has way too many options, it's just overwhelming to the parties, and it may actually become an obstacle to them finding an agreement. So issues like digital divide, issues like ensuring that the language is clearly understood and the parties can walk through, also gathering information from your users as they go through the process and continually refining it. I think that this is a key concern. But again, when Jim and I were doing this in 2000, there were no mobile phones. It was all laptops. There were no broadband connections. You know, people had to pay a lot of money for that. Now, I know in India, they're giving out free tablets to school kids, you know, so the access to technology has come way down. But we need to design with our users front and center to ensure we're meeting their needs. And that means each of these systems designs have to think about the capabilities of its users. So I think, Linda, you could tell we could go on for another 2 hours
You
here.
could, and that would be wonderful, but I'm going to invite you to do that in the exhibit hall today. So,
absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. To Colin and to Jim, fantastic, great work. I'm excited to see what you guys have in store for us in 2021. In fact, I'm just excited to have 2021 arrive as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a link to the evaluation session for this session in the chat. I'll leave the room open for a few minutes longer so that you can access that. But it's also accessible in the hub. And if you'll just go back and click on the session, you'll be able to access it there. Guys, the exhibit hall is open and ready for you. And I know Colin and Jim will be ready to answer all of your questions. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll see you in a few.
Thank you so much, everyone. Stay well.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.